Positioning your brand correctly in a crowded market like the Web3 space is imperative if you want to capture, retain, and command attention. In this video, we're going to be going over how to kind of put together your brand position and create a position that's strong enough to capture attention of the market and really differentiate yourself from your competitors. Now, if you haven't watched our last video, I would recommend you do that. It's basically a video covering the four foundational pieces of information you need to create your brand positioning. And just a TLDR, it's audience segmentation, product mapping, competitive landscape, and market trends and forces. So I'd highly recommend that. It will cover basically everything you need to know to kind of put together your brand position. And in this video, we're going to take that information and show you how you can use it with other, thought frameworks to kind of put this thing together. So without further ado, we can get straight into the first bit. So just a quick primer on brand positioning. Just a little bit on the basics, right? So what exactly is brand positioning? So positioning is how the market sees you relative to other competitors, right? And I think one thing that we can distinguish is the difference between positioning and narrative. So positioning is more of a logical foundation, and branding/brand narrative is also a more emotional thing. And they both make up two sides of the same coin, right? Humans naturally are logical and emotional in thinking, with the left and the right brain conducting those each. Left brain is more logical, right brain is more emotional, and together, obviously, they create the whole. So we do have to cover a logical side of our brand, which is the positioning, and then you can go into the narrative and kind of the other branding items, which are more emotional. So obviously, positioning is really important, right? It creates clarity in a noisy market. Without clear messaging, without a clear position in the market, the audience will define your brand for you. They'll put you where they think you need to be if you don't tell them where you think you need to be, right? Without clarity on your narrative, without clarity on your narrative and positioning, you risk being categorized arbitrarily by the market. And this can dilute your relevance, right? You really want to make sure that we are putting the perception together for them and telling them how it is. One analogy that I like is you can take some glasses and we're basically building the lenses that people look through when they look at your brand or they speak about your brand. So that's why positioning is really important. Now, there's a few questions we should answer before we get into the school of thought or frameworks for brand positioning. And the first is understanding what is my project. And what you'll notice about these questions is that they very much relate to a pitch deck. Pitch decks can follow a similar structure for parts of it. So this is really an important exercise to conduct on all fronts. So what is the project? So we need to break down the product or project into the most simple, most digestible format, right? Avoid jargon, avoid technical details, just really simply, what is this thing that we have here? Simplicity is critical because it ensures clarity. And if we are spinning up jargon for an audience that doesn't need to know about the jargon, then we can lose people. Now, obviously, for more technical products, we should be aligning with our audience. But this is something to make sure that we take care of as well, because to really understand something and explain it well, we have to understand it in its most simple form. Cool. So number two, why does this even matter? So we need to define the core problem that the product solves and then highlight the value it delivers to the audience. So basically connecting the benefits of the product to the problems that it solves for the audience. Now, Ekram from Celestia has this really nice and interesting line of questioning to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what this is. And he calls it the so what questioning, I guess. And he has it in his video. I'd really recommend everyone to check it out. But basically what he says is, for everything that we say, we say that audience should care about this, or this is what it does for the audience. We should go a step further and say, so what? Why should the audience care about that? Why do they care about that? And so on and so on. And what happens then is we distill this into the most fundamental value proposition that we can get. And if we can't answer this, generally people we see who can't answer this trying to bandwagon on trends. And this might get you some short-term relevancy, but you will lack long-term impact. So we need to really make sure that this question can be answered, because this is going to help us in our longevity. Now, number three, why this product? What is our unique advantage? Why should users pick you over the competitor? So, I would avoid overloading this with too many differentiators. We've worked with products who have got a lot going on, and it can be hard to ascertain what narrative they are trying to push across, and the messaging can become messy and all sorts. So we need to really think about how we show the unique proposition of the company. Now, if you are competing in a category of many, pick 1 to 2 aspects of your brand that really set you apart and lean into them. A good example would be Solana versus Ethereum. So obviously, Solana is L1, competing in the L1 category. When it first came out, I mean, there were other players such as Avalanche, Cardano, Ethereum, and many others. But Solana stood out because it flipped the script and said, hey, listen, we're not a general purpose smart contract platform. We're high speeds, low cost, clear distinction from Ethereum's focus on, general purpose smart contracts and decentralization. So that way you can kind of pinpoint your unique proposition to the market. And finally, the why now. Obviously, you see this in every pitch deck, but we need to tie our project's relevance to the current market trends and forces. Now, this might sound like a contradiction because I just said that we shouldn't do that. What really the difference is here is that we are assuming that at this point we have a position that we're going to create, and we just need to understand how we can, let's say, keep mindshare and keep attention by aligning our position with current market trends, right? Versus having the market trends be our position in the market. Cool. So moving on, the 2 winning positioning strategies. Now, there are 2 approaches to positioning that work really effectively. This is something that David Sachs from, I believe, PayPal was putting out there a few years ago. And the first way is to basically dominate competition, right? Take the competitive market and dominate based on your, key differentiators, right? Repositioning competitors' perceived strengths as weaknesses and aligning your aligning your strengths as the strengths that should be kind of benchmarking on, right? Try to be the best at some key differentiator that you have, even in a crowded space. And this is called the Michael Jordan way because obviously he's the GOAT, and he doesn't play in anything but a competitive landscape when he used to play basketball. So I think Solana is a good example of this. Again, redefining its position in the layer 1 space by focusing on speed and cost efficiency versus security and general smart contract and decentralization propositions. And now a lot of layer 1s are focusing on speed as the core metric to focus on because they kind of went and did it first. The second way is the peer-to-tier way. So this is more along the lines of, let's not go directly for the crowded market. Let's find a market that we can own, maybe less crowded, maybe no one's in it, and we can kind of own that market, right? An example would be Celestia. They didn't compete as another layer 1, even though they could have. They introduced the concept of modular blockchains and created a new niche where they could lead and own all the mindshare by default. And this method requires us to educate and evangelize the market on this new category, so it can be a little bit more difficult. But the rewards, if done correctly, pay off handsomely because you have all the mindshare. Now, something to note is that we should not be in the middle. We cannot be teetering between both because that dilutes our messaging and makes it very unclear. We should choose one camp and commit. Now, moving into differentiation. The Web3 space moves very fast and people kind of take over project by project. So you need to really have your differentiation nailed down. And there's a couple ways to do this. The first is to work on your brand's thesis. When you have a point of view or you have a very strong opinion, it can become more compelling from a brand perspective. What I mean by that is, if you look at the market of DEXs, every DEX is just, pretty much every DEX is just a fork on the copy of the next. There are very few which have a thesis and conviction on some worldview that they're trying to solve. They're all kind of trying to solve the same thing and they all look pretty much the same. Now, the same can be said for other layer 1s and other networks. But what the real... In the Web3 space, things move really fast, right? Differentiation is essential for standing out. We can't just compete on tech because, a lot of people don't just care about tech. It's about other things as well. There's a couple ways you can kind of create this differentiation. The first is to have a brand thesis. What this really means is a worldview that your brand might have. It's a polarizing set of opinions that you guys have on the market, on the wider world, and basically why you are needed in this space. And it's important because people can stand behind agendas like this, right? If you look at a lot of the world leaders in politics, they all have agendas, they all have doctrines, they all have these, I guess, points of views that people get behind. And that's what makes people rally behind them. And it's the same here, right? You have a polarizing opinion, normally one of controversy or somewhat contrarian, and it generates attention and fosters some engagement. A really good example of this was Hyperliquid, who had a very successful airdrop recently. They're challenging traditional finance. They're not even competing with other L1s in their eyes. They're not even competing with other DEXs or SEXs. They're just saying, hey, listen, we're competing with finance. Current Web3 solutions are not good enough. And they will not stop until all of finance is on their chain. It's very straightforward. And that's compelling because they're like, these guys are serious, right? The second way is to obviously figure out what your differences are. So there's three camps here again. Generally, it's on the eyes of concepts. So are you introducing some new technology or new concept to the market, such as eigenlayers restaking? Or have you got like a unique brand concept like Berachain has? The second is on product. So you can either go with the route of features. Features generally are, for the most part, copyable. So it wouldn't be good to base your whole brand on a set of features. But the other side is value proposition. So what value proposition are you bringing? Can you position your value proposition in a way that makes it different from others on the market? And then audience. So you can either hyper focus and overserve a specific niche. And obviously when people see that you're overserving them, they feel like you're a specialist to them. And it can be a lot more compelling to deal with that type of supplier or product. Or you can provide a differentiated experience, right? So this could be something like those exchanges or dexes where you swipe, like Tinder style swiping to go through projects. That's a differentiated user experience. That's nice. That's something for the user. So overall, we need to push kind of norms, whether it's in the brand or in the concept or the product or the audience. We need to push everything out. We don't need to please everyone. We should kind of be sacrificing part of the audience to make our positioning a lot more compelling. Polarizing idea or position is better than just being vanilla, right? Being loved or hated is better than being liked and ignored. These are things that drive things on the emotional extremes, right? You can be loved and you get loads of attention, or you can be hated and you also get a lot of publicity and attention. But being in the middle, that's a bit tough. So when you push boundaries, you create advocacy, you create, you gather attention, you gain loyal followers. No great doctrines were made from in the box thinking, right? If you can get outside the box, find an angle that you can take that isn't normally taken, and make it so that you push that to your audience. The fifth thing is understanding the moats that we have. So a moat is really important because it secures your position in the market. Sometimes it can be part of your positioning, but this is really what helps you stay. There's a few key moats that you need to look to build. One is scale economies. So, can you grow efficiently as your user base expands? I think Hyperliquid is a very good example of this. Network effects. Do your products amplify themselves as more users join? This could be something along the lines of some unique referral scheme, but obviously that wouldn't make that your positioning either. But again, network effects are very important. 3, counter positioning. So competing by redefining the rules. This is kind of taking the opposite side of market incumbents. Catalyst, I think, is a nice example of this. They have positioned their bridge as the bridge for only alt VMs. They said, screw it. The bridge market is good enough. There's bridges for all the EVM chains. We're just going to go to the other side and say no EVM. Anything that's non-EVM we'll handle. And I think that's really powerful. That's complete counter positioning. They're only servicing a lot less than half the market. And, it's very compelling. Now they probably own most mindshare in that realm. 4 is switching costs. So making it difficult for users to leave. This is something like a proprietary product or brand dynamics that induces stickiness. This could be some referral scheme. This could be just inherent, product-led growth items as well. I guess Hyperliquid did a very good job of this with their airdrop campaign, as now everyone is still staying with the platform. No one is really dipping and leaving. 5 is branding. So strong culture, visual identity, set of values that are hard to replicate. Again, biggest names that come to my mind at the moment would be Berachain, which is like very differentiated brand experience, brand identity and stuff, and strong culture. 6 is cornered resources, so proprietary technology, exclusive partnerships, or unique features that have a competitive advantage. In my mind, the teams at Starkware, and Supra come to mind. Obviously, Supra have the pretty famous researcher, Dr. Aniket Kate, who developed the KDD commits, leading all their research. And so that's obviously something that not everyone can have. And 7 is process power. So developing operational processes that are challenging for others to copy. Now, this can be just basically a lot of things, but I think the main part is, do you guys ship? I think this can also be in terms of leadership. This can be in terms of team as well. A good example of this could be Solana, who managed to basically come back from what everyone thought was dead and now are thriving. So, what is there left to do? Well, 6 is to implement your positioning and test it. So test your messaging, right? Try your positioning, through social media, community, website content, see the feedback, use the feedback loops to redefine and strengthen your positioning. And then engineer those brand associations. When you implement it, we need to be proactive and decide how the brand should be perceived. What companies do we need to compare to? Who do we want to be on the shelf with, right? We should be engaging with those people from a personal brand and a brand perspective, potentially. And making sure that people understand that this is who we're competing with. And thirdly, as I mentioned, feedback loops. We need to leverage the fast-paced nature of the cycles for feedback in this space. Test small, refine, scale. See what sticks, see what doesn't, right? You're never going to hit it first time. If you do, congratulations, you're very good. But this is something that normally takes iteration. And remember, your positioning statement should not be a long paragraph. It should be a very succinct one-liner. What do you do, right? There are a few examples which I can show to you now. Let me just jump to that. So to round off, here's just a couple examples of positioning statements and the difference between positioning and the tagline, or positioning and narrative. So the positioning statement here is for first one for Eclipse, the SVM L2. So very quickly, Ethereum's first SVM L2, to the point, factual, clear. And the tagline is Solana on Ethereum, right? Very clear, right? We understand now what a positioning statement should look like. It shouldn't be something so convoluted. It should be very easy to understand. Secondly, positioning is the only bridge for alt VMs. This is for Catalyst and their Crosscats bridge. The only bridge for alt VMs. Very clear. They are the only bridge for alt VMs. There's like nothing else to it, right? Very clear position in the market. Nothing that can really be taken wrong. And then the tagline, explore beyond Ethereum. So I hope you like this video. This should be pretty much all you need to kind of go ahead and define your brand position. Feel free to hit me up in the comments if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. And yeah, I mean, if you like this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends. So I'll see you in the next video, and yeah, enjoy.